So you were saying Australia's on fire?
Australia is on fire. It's not good. I saw somebody put overlaid the map, right, of like the area radius of the fire, and then with the radius of the smoke, which is like 10 times the radius of the fire, over Europe, and all of Europe would be covered in smoke.
Well, isn't Australia a lot of outback desert?
Uh-huh. And a lot of people are losing their homes. A lot of people are... Well, I don't know the numbers. I haven't looked up the numbers, but...
Well, I'm looking it up right now.
It does not look good. Anybody that needs to know whether... Anybody's still, debating whether or not climate change is real. It's real. And Australia is the beginning. It is not the end. It is not the middle. It is the very beginning.
I don't think it's the beginning. But you guys look up this map. Is the whole eastern coast is on fire, and parts all over. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people live on coast on Australia because most of Australia is outback desert.
A lot of it is pretty inhospitable. It's not really a place that you'd want to live or is easy to maintain. So,
yeah, that's the outback part.
Yeah, I saw a picture the other day on Reddit. It was the post was, "This is what Australia looks like unfiltered through a camera," and so there was no filter on it. It was just red. Everything was red. There were no visible fires, but it was just red because all the smoke was, obviously red is a...
Well, with big enough fire, the red reflects
but the wavelength of the red is the only thing that can make it through all the smoke, apparently. Something along the lines of that. It's easier for the red to get through the smoke. And so it's just all red. Insane. I'm glad I don't live in Australia. Sorry, Australians. Anyway, I'm Dalton.
And I'm Josh.
And this is the Two Morons podcast. Oh, well, so what you got any topics to discuss, Josh?
Well, it's 2020. I survived another year.
Hooray! 2020. Yep, I'm alive. Here we are. This year's gonna be a year for us U.S. citizens. It's election year. Don't you just love it, Josh? Don't you just love election years?
Yeah, I love it, especially when we get certain people in power.
Uh-huh.
Let's hope they don't stay.
Oh, I hope he doesn't last the year. I hope he doesn't make it to the next election, but he probably will.
I mean, we're not trying to be political, but I mean...
Yeah, it's very hard not to be political. It's practically all anything is over here is political.
Well, with Trump in power, Okay, so there's something called yellow journalism or muckringing. That's Trump. Yeah. It's just lying and changing how the media is supposed to view stuff.
Unfiltered bullshit. Unfiltered bullshit is what it is.
But he did get impeached, right? Yes.
Yeah, the House impeached him. He has technically been impeached. Right now, it's up to the Senate has to define a trial. Well, in reality, the House of Representatives, after they impeached him, are supposed to hand over the articles of impeachment to the Senate. They are refusing to do that strictly because, this is the Democratic argument, that they want Mitch McConnell, because Mitch McConnell is the Republican majority leader. He is the majority leader in the Senate. The Republicans have the Senate, so he is the majority leader. He is in control, essentially, of the rules that preside over, or that overrule the trial. And he has stated he doesn't, he wants it to be the way the previous impeachment happened with Clinton, right? Yes. Sorry, I had to think about it.
Didn't Clinton not get impeached? They stopped the impeachment. He had trial.
They went to the trial. They went to the trial. So that's where they're getting the precedent from. So in the Clinton impeachment trial, the witnesses, all the witnesses that they needed, gave testimony, under perjury of law. They gave testimony in the House. And so they didn't necessarily need to call upon all of them in the Senate. So they said, we'll listen to the facts and then we'll call what witnesses we need to after. We'll decide what witnesses to call. The Democratic Party right now does not want to leave that up to a decision later, because if they don't agree to it now, or if they don't agree to call witnesses now, it's entirely possible that Mitch McConnell and the Republican Party will just say, okay, now that we've made it and we've listened to everything, we don't need to hear the witnesses. I don't want to draw this out. Let's just go through it. So they want them to agree to witnesses now, and that's why they're not handing over the articles of impeachment. So technically, Trump should be getting a trial in the Senate for impeachment. It might take a while for that to happen.
Well, what some people don't know, I mean, if you don't study government, it's very hard to understand how the United States government works.
Yes.
So, in the Senate, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Senate sends it to the House. No, the House sends it to the Senate.
The House starts the impeachment process. They do the investigations and they write up the articles of impeachment. They choose to impeach. The Senate chooses to convict.
And
or to
choose the sentence
yes,
of the conviction.
The sentence of, yeah.
Yes. And that's the problem when one is held by Republicans, one's held by Democrats.
Yeah.
One is controlled, like the right-hand man of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is sitting there saying, this is how we're going to have this trial.
Yeah, Donald Trump.
Which is affecting...
Donald Trump is just actively, Mitch McConnell, the Republican majority leader, the person in control of the Senate, just in case anybody is unaware, is actively speaking with Donald Trump, the defendant. And if the person in control of the trial is being influenced by the defendant, then the defendant just has control of the trial. That's how it seems to me.
That's just like living in a small town. Yeah. Your uncle's a judge. He got a speeding ticket. Hey, get me off the hook.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's happening. And in my opinion, that should be considered a type of treason because it's going against the Declaration. It's going against our government to stop this, a balance of power.
I saw on C-SPAN, I watched just yesterday, I believe, was they met an Article 3 court. They met to discuss whether or not the House, or essentially the legislative branch, they issued subpoenas to people who work in the White House. They issued subpoenas for essentially people in the executive branch. Those people were told by the president, don't comply. The executive branch actively gave an order to all of its members, do not comply with these subpoenas. Which, a subpoena, you have to comply. You can't just ignore a subpoena. So they went to court. They just trying to determine whether or not they have any power to enforce these subpoenas or if they can just be ignored. And essentially, the entire court case wasn't even discussing that. I listened to the whole hour and 30-some minutes, whatever it was, and it seemed like the entire case was not discussing whether or not these subpoenas need to be enforced, but whether or not that court has the power to make that decision.
See, there's actually the problem. It does matter if Donald Trump talked to Russia and stuff, but he's actively interfering with a trial. Yep. An investigation. It doesn't matter if he was guilty or not guilty from the first part. He's also doing this. And this is what a president of the United States should not do.
If an innocent person, an everyday, average innocent person, actively tampers and obstructs a trial against them, whether they were guilty or not, they would be charged with obstruction. They would be charged with tampering with evidence, whatever the decision is. It's like it doesn't matter if they are guilty in the original crime. Doesn't matter because they are actively blocking the investigation. That is a crime.
Okay, so the Mueller report, the
Mueller report,
discovered all these stuff, how the government was actually going against parts of the Constitution.
So it all starts with I guess it doesn't start with it, but the dossier, the Steele dossier, was I don't know how to get into all the details. Essentially, the DNC something somehow paid for through whatever means a dossier to be written about in this is I
Well, it's actually
it's
very
it's, it's
complicated.
lost in my mind. There was
Okay, the guy was named Mueller.
Mueller. Well, yeah, Mueller took it over because they fired the initial guy. I'm pretty sure the person who was initially doing the investigation got fired, and I think by Trump. Comey, yeah, Comey.
Alright.
Comey was the initial person in charge of the investigation. Got fired by Trump, and then Mueller took it over, and Trump even tried to fire Mueller too, and that I don't know how that didn't happen, but he tried. But essentially, this dossier outlined corruption or essentially Russian meddling in the 2016 election and ties to Trump and all that, right? And then that started the whole Mueller investigation. Mueller investigation goes through. I thought the Mueller investigation was handled well. The report was, written well. It seemed very clear. Yes, there was 100% certain there was Russian meddling in the 2016 election. And then the second part of that was whether or not something having to do with Trump.
Pretty much if Trump was actively doing it or not.
Trump was I don't think. I think the second half wasn't whether or not Trump was involved in the meddling, but whether or not Trump was trying to obstruct the investigation, which he was. He was trying to actively obstruct the investigation. That's what the second part of it states. And then you have this whole thing with the Ukraine. Trump had a phone call, blah, 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 blah. Quid pro quo. Do this for me, blah, blah, blah. And then they went through the impeachment. They did all that. And then since they've been holding the articles of impeachment from the Senate, the time that some emails got released that were initially redacted by the Attorney General, I believe, in the Department of Justice. They were initially, the entire email was just a black square. All of it was redacted. You think, that's kind of odd.
Yeah.
This email, by the way, which was sent, I think, 70 or 90 some minutes after the phone call with the Ukrainian president, Zelensky, after Trump's phone call with him, this email was sent 90 minutes, within an hour and a half, I think. I'm not 100% on that, and stating, the Department of Justice saw that this could cause problems. There could be a problem with holding the foreign aid. Mm-hmm. That entire email was redacted, so it didn't make it into the initial House investigation. They couldn't get it unredacted. They didn't have it, and the White House was not cooperating. Nobody in the executive branch was cooperating. So, when the legislative branch is supposed to oversee and check the executive branch, but the executive branch just says, no. That's not how our government's supposed to work. The branches are supposed to keep each other in check. You can't just actively defy another branch.
That's the problem. And as American people, we got to decide, is that how we want to live? Because that is the start of a government that doesn't care about the people.
Yeah.
And they only care about power.
Yeah, I think all this started in early 2000 or 2001 when they passed that bill that allows corporations to there is no limit on the amount of money they can put into our elections.
Oh, yeah.
Our candidates, political lobbying and whatnot. I don't know the exact bill, but I know somewhere in the early 2000s, I believe, a bill was passed that removed the limit that had been in place for 40 plus years, preventing corporations from piling money into our political systems, and now they can put however much they want and just buy the damn thing.
And here's another problem is, if you don't have money, you cannot be the president.
Yeah. Chances
are, even if you start out with nothing, you go to school and maybe become a governor, you still will almost never have a shot of being a president.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a big group of people that control the government.
You have to get a lot of funding from rich people. In the past, you had to get a lot of funding from rich people Like, you go there, you get the, you essentially sell them your candidacy. Like, you have to upsell it. They give you money. You say thank you, and you make sure they give you more money. You get more money, and then you have your presidential candidacy. You have your run. I don't know. It's interesting, and I mean, this year we're seeing, this election we're seeing at least one candidate. He'd have absolutely no. Well, essentially, I think the term is super PAC. Super PAC is the where all the rich, can put in their money into a candidate's, campaign. Bernie Sanders doesn't have that. He's raised more than every other Democratic candidate. Now the media, there's some certain news sites don't like to report for Bernie because they're owned by billionaires.
Well, that's one of the problems too.
But I mean, I thought it was hilarious. He's raised, I forget how much, 39 million. I don't know. He has 5 million. I've seen the number on C-SPAN. 5 million individual contributions, which is never happened before. So he's definitely he's strictly taking money from people who should be supporting him, and then you've got obviously Trump on the Republican side. Because I think I've only, on the C-SPAN, I think there are 3 current people running for the Republican nominations, and I can't name the other 2 because they don't matter. So the only one that matters is Trump because he's the current president. So, he's got 49 million, I believe, or 45 million dollar donations. So he still has more donations than Bernie, but Bernie is getting all of his donations from average citizens and none from rich people. So it's kind of intriguing to see that he has a following.
Well, it's actually nice to see that he's getting money from average citizens because it takes a lot more people to build that money instead of a couple billionaires.
Yeah, but he's got support. Then I've seen growing support for Yang. People are still talking about Biden. Biden seems to be doing fine. He's not, it's like I've seen conflicting reports that say people say Bernie is ahead of Biden, and others say Biden is ahead of Bernie, and at that point all you can do is look at who's saying these things, and seems like the people saying Biden is ahead of Bernie are just billion-dollar news corporations, whereas some of the others are not. So who do you want to trust? That's what it comes down to. Who do you want to trust? All of our media. All of our shitty media.
Yeah. Right now I'm looking up some new news. We want to stay away from politics. I mean, like we said, it's pretty dang hard, especially with Trump.
Yeah.
Just because...
Especially when we're living in Kansas surrounded by a bunch of Republicans.
Oh, yeah.
It's...
Our vote don't count.
Our vote doesn't. Our opinions don't necessarily matter a whole lot. It seems.
But when I say our vote don't count,
voice my opinions anyway. Over Christmas my dad and I went to out of state visit family.
Yeah.
And we got into some political conversations in the car. There were multiple times where he would throw out some statistic or fact, and I would immediately Google it to find that is in fact incorrect. Everything about it was wrong. And he's like, well, I looked up and there was a study in 2015. I'm like, oh, you mean the study that they were announcing, a month after this so-called fact came to light? It's like Trump will say something, say something along the lines of, 2.8 million illegal immigrants voted in our 2016 election. And then people in the Republican Party will scrounge to find facts to support that. They're just like, we need to find any study that could possibly support that. So they go with, 2012 or 2014 data, regarding illegal immigration or illegal voting. And so this thing has a sample size of about 100 people. So clearly not an accurate representation. 100 people is not enough,
and that's
and
what
then
they do.
Immediately, people do actual studies, find the actual,
actual data
and whatnot, the actual data, and it's like, maybe 1,000 people were arrested for voter fraud in the 2016 election. 1,000 people.
And probably those are legal people that are
between,
trying to be more than one person.
And the difference between, in the votes between Hillary and Trump was 2.8 million, 2.9 million. So it's like...
Oh, yeah, it's just barely.
Yeah.
Barely
but
the difference.
Hillary won.
Russia...
Hillary won the popular vote with the people. Trump won the Electoral College. And
that's called gerrymandering.
Yeah.
And if Russia actually got involved, I don't know how they got involved.
They were, obviously propaganda is the easiest way they got involved, going on media, sprouting a bunch of hate about whatever, and just overall shit that isn't true. And people eat that shit right up, they go on Facebook, they create accounts, they post whatever the hell they want.
Well, it's actually very easy to do that stuff.
I think they even tried to get, but then again, Russia's going to meddle in Russia's been trying to meddle in our elections since forever.
Yeah,
so they're always going to try, but I think the 2016 election was just a significant success.
Trump has been to Russia multiple times, has business connections in Russia, has sat across the table from the Tsar of Russia.
He's also, in the way he cozies up to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un and these other authoritarian
Kim Jong-un played
authoritarian leaders in Iran and Iraq was it Iraq? Wherever the one guy, the war person. Then there's the guy in Vietnam, the current president of Venezuela. The other one that starts with a V. Venezuela, he's been cozying up to that guy. Which, I have an interesting thought on the guy from Venezuela, because my grandpa used to run a company down there.
It's a hot spot.
A specific company. He had a huge business. He had people coming from all around South America, and even I think he had some people shipping stuff from Africa. I'm not going to go into the specifics because you could probably track it down. There probably aren't many of them. And he had to leave. He had to pack up everything and just abandon that business down there because they started arresting and whatever, killing or torturing or I don't know, American citizens. They're just like, you're under arrest and you're going to rot in prison for the rest of your life. It's like, he told me a story. It's like if you're driving down the road and you're speeding a bit and a cop flashes his lights to you or you pass the cop, you don't stop. You don't stop. You don't roll down your window. You don't give your passport. You run. Because if you stop, you will go to jail and you will never come out.
Wow.
Being an American citizen. It's like, so he had to completely abandon that business.
But, that's the scary part is he's targeting these places that are not good for Americans.
Yeah.
Why? It's good. There's a lot of business opportunities there, and that's what I'm thinking. Is that's what he's doing.
He's absolutely trying to set up business opportunities to make himself money, and that's not what the president should do. The president should be interested in national
security.
Yeah, well, national support. If it's not right for the nation, you shouldn't be doing it as the president. So, yeah, but the national, it's like, if it's not in the national interest, that's the word I was looking for. Sorry, brain decided to stop working. But if it's not in the national interest, there's no point, there's no reason the president should do it. It's like, that should be the president's number one goal. Not making himself money, not making his children money, not making his corporations money, so that he can go bankrupt another 12 times.
Well, you're right. This is how I see it. The government should ask what it can do for the people. The people should ask what we can do for the government.
Yeah.
It's just like in marriage.
Yeah.
You ask what can you do for your partner, and they do it back, and everyone's happy.
Citizens should be open to supporting the place that they live in. You should actively try to support the people around you and the people, because it's like, it's like a human evolution. People band together with the people close to them. That's always how it worked. Just treat other human beings with respect and dignity. We've lost a lot of that. Just treat other human beings with respect and dignity and don't be an asshole.
Well, you're right. And I was going to go into that point a little bit back when we're talking about Trump messing with all these other countries.
Yeah.
You look at it. He's got a small view. He's messing with these small countries where there's hot spots. And it's not fixing the problem, it's making the problems worse.
Yep.
But it's helping him somehow.
Short
And that's
term,
a small view.
Short-term gains is what it is.
I want world peace and all, and I think we are able to achieve that. But when the United States starts messing with these hot spots like this, causing problems, didn't he he sent in a whole bunch of drones? Wasn't it drones? He attacked Iran.
You mean
Or was it Iran?
The thing recently?
Yeah.
The Iranian leader?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a military strike. I believe it was precision strike, drone strike, I think. I'm not 100%. Some type of precision strike. Essentially, they assassinated this leader in Iran who was a terrorist. Everyone agrees. Dude was an awful guy. He was a terrorist. Nobody's going to mourn his death. Or at least nobody in the United States should. Is what I've been hearing that from both sides.
Crowds gathered in Baghdad to mourn military leader killed.
Yeah, but that's, it seems to me, everybody is in agreement. He launched this strike against the advice of any military leaders. He didn't consult Congress. And this could very well, this is, a lot of people are considering this an act of war.
It is an act of war.
It's an act of war. He's trying to the president does not have the power to start a war. Congress does.
I mean, he can deploy the Marines any way he wants. That's the only branch he can. But you're attacking a foreign country. That is an act of war.
That is an act of war.
If there's not an active attack. Now, the guy was a bad guy.
The Iranian government has already said they don't support. They absolutely did not condone this action. This action was completely wrong. It was absolutely the wrong way to go about it. Because it's like he's destabilizing that region. That region of the world. He's destabilizing. I mean, when he was running for election.
Top general. He was a top general.
Yeah,
and one of the most powerful men in Iran.
That's what I said, yeah.
Was killed in a drone strike at Baghdad airport early Friday.
Yep. There was, it's like when Trump ran for his presidency, he made the statement he was going to end all of the endless wars in the Middle East.
But he
made it worse. He's trying to start another one.
Well,
he was accusing. I saw tweets from him back in, I think, 2013. I'm not 100% on that. Tweets from him trying to accuse. He's like trying to predict. Oh, look at look at what this weak and ineffective president is going to do. He's gonna start a war with Iran to keep his presidency. And look what Trump's doing.
Oh my gosh.
Trump tweeted that about Obama in 2013.
That is what he's doing. That is exactly what he's doing.
He's
starting a war.
Yeah, he straight up announced his strategy years ago. If he thought and now he thinks his presidency is at risk. So he's starting a war.
He went out and started a war. That is exactly what that is. Traitorous. Because it's not taking out some bad person that's hurting the United States government. And this is actually really pissing me off because I'm a United States soldier. I've been overseas. War's not fun. War's not good. And purposely starting a war to make sure you're president or stay in power is the wrong way. Now, okay, he was a bad man. But what are we doing to stop it from getting worse? It's just like we pulled out and fucked over the Kurds.
Yeah, there are no safety measures. After this strike, all military leaders agreed that it's like the Department of
some journals should step in.
The Department of Defense, some department, I forget which one, is claiming they've made the claim. Yes, have planned for keeping the area secure, keeping our U.S. citizens safe. It's like if you're planned to keep our U.S. citizens safe, how come a day after the strike, the U.S. embassy in Iran was telling U.S. citizens leave now? It's like you didn't think. It's like clearly it wasn't thought out, because if it was thought out, you would have told all of you wouldn't have put your citizens in that position in the first place. Two, if you absolutely had to do this attack, you would have notified citizens, hey, leave.
Well, here's the messed up part. This is the worst part about war and stuff. Yeah. You're in a country, and if you're in a hot spot country, you are taking extra risks to your own life.
Yes.
It's a sad part. And if there is actually a legitimate cause to cause a strike. They're not going to say, "Hey, Dalton, get out of the country. We're going to go strike." They're going to strike and then tell you to get out.
But
and hope you don't get killed.
Yeah.
They don't want to get you hurt or killed. Well, Donald Trump don't care.
But it's like you just don't want to do that when you have citizens over there that are gonna there's potential to bring them harm. It's like, why are you doing this? Also, it's destabilizing that region. You killed this one terrorist, but he was just a general in an army. He was a general of an entire league of terrorist cells who like, yes, I've seen, yes, it was a fact, it's been proven he helped carry out several terrorist attacks against a lot of people. He's not the only one. Killing him alone, a precision strike on him, is just going to aggravate. It's not gonna help.
Here's another thing: is if Trump wanted to do someone dead, it was very easy to do it without doing a drone strike. Yeah. One person, easy. Yeah. And people be like, "No, it's not." Yeah, it is very easy. There's ways to kill people. Assassination techniques. He was an open thing. But he chose to do a high-profile attack. There's no way people did not know once it hit where it came from.
I mean, even if you did the, somewhat silent assassination, there'd still be a lot of, speculation that it's like, who would do this? Probably the U.S. We're the most anti-terrorists, so it would probably be us.
Maybe, but the problem is, terrorists makes a lot of enemies.
Terrorists make a lot of enemies, but
he chose to attack. Like we said, he's trying to start a war.
He's trying to start a war.
Say, I need to be a president.
Iraq. Iran. You've got Iran, Iraq, Pakistan. The what's the other one?
Afghanistan. Did you say that?
Afghanistan. That one. Yeah.
I actually got.
It's like
future. Shoot, I don't know.
It's just
if he's a cousin-in-law or something. He's part of cavalry, and he's being deployed to Afghanistan.
Yeah. Why are we still in Afghanistan?
Because if we pull out, we're going to cause more problems.
Exactly.
We can't.
We never should have gone in the first place. I won't say everyone agrees, because obviously there are people that don't agree, because obviously we went there. But everyone should agree we never should have been there in the first place. All we did was make everything worse.
We did it all wrong. Is the problem? We came in all wrong, and then we're trying to fix it.
Yeah.
There's a thing called heart and minds. We're trying to win the heart and minds now. We didn't go in trying to win the heart and minds. We went in, and war's changed.
Slaughtered.
And that's actually a good thing. The war has changed. Mm-hmm. And if you look, like I think we said in the past one, there's less wars, less global wars.
Yeah, there are.
But United States right now with our president and government, we keep stirring the pot in the wrong way.
It's very, very delicate situation. It's like any wrong move by this oaf in the Oval Office could spark a major war. And he's made a lot of wrong moves. He's made nothing but bad decisions. I can't say nothing but bad decisions, but 99% of his decisions have been bad.
If we're going to have a World War III, Donald Trump is the one that's going to spark it. Yeah. Think about this. China. We used to have stuff over them, and they used to have stuff over us, because we are trading with each other a lot. Now we have destroyed that. There is a point where China could say, hey, there's no benefit between us, because we can't trade. And that is how we can move to the next world order. Yeah. And when I say next world order, a peaceful world, is because we trade with everyone. But once we break down that trade, we don't have any resources they can get legally. So there's no reason for them to defend them, not help their allies when they're getting messed up.
If they have no incentives to support us and we have no incentives to support them, what's that mean? It means we're enemies, right? Like that's what it's going to mean.
Exactly.
Then you have people like North Korea. North Korea is trying to get nuclear weapons. They're trying to make them. It's like they have nuclear weapons. They don't necessarily right now have the capability. They might, and they might be close.
Well, they do have the capability. The problem is the type of nuclear weapon they have is based off of high explosive. Yeah, they strap high explosive around I think it's uranium core. Mm-hmm. And all those high explosives got to blow off at the right time smashing against the core, causing nuclear fusion.
But then you know,
fission.
it's like this strike. I think it's been deemed that this went against our nuclear pact with Iran, right? This was absolutely an act of war. It violated our whatever treaties were signed or whatever, you know, whatever
whatever
we
we've
had
been
in
trying to
place
do
with
to
them.
bring peace.
Yeah.
We fucked it up.
Yeah, it's
The only thing
he's actively
good.
trying to fuck it up.
There's two things going for us. We're too fucking large, where no one country is going to stand up against us because we can wipe them out. That's also another bad thing is we will group a lot of enemies together. They'd be like, hey, you hate U.S. Luckily, some of these countries we don't like, their leaders are actually more intelligent than our leader right now.
Yeah.
They're more intelligent. I mean, think about it. If Russia helped Trump, Putin's not dumb.
No.
Putin knows what he's doing.
Putin knows what he's doing. Why do you think he's been in power for so long?
Exactly.
He's actively rigging elections and doing all of that. You know, he's... Yeah, there's, you know, I don't know. You know, look on the bright side, though. If we have a nuclear winter, then climate change won't be as bad.
You're right. You're right.
I stole that joke from Reddit. Yeah. It's like, yeah. What? Oh, want to solve climate change? Create a nuclear winter. It's like, I don't think that's how that works, but, you know, go for it if you really want to. You want to wipe out the all of us. But yeah, climate change, real problem. People still denying it. Don't know how they can. Do they not have families, children, grandchildren? They just don't want them to be happy and sustainable. It's like you people will complain about immigration now. Just wait until thousands of, you know, millions and hundreds of millions of families have their houses burning down closer to the equator. Where do you think they're all going to go?
Well,
you know,
even taking the burning down thing, couple inches
no dry
raising
water.
of ocean raising could mean 10 to 100 feet inland and coast.
Yep.
Could actually swallow up small islands.
Yeah. Yep. The Miami, underwater. New Orleans, underwater. New York, underwater.
Well, shoot. New Orleans has those levees, right?
New Orleans is already technically underwater. They are below sea level.
Those levees were made, I don't know when it was made, but they did the job when it was made, but the seawater has raised so much, the levees can't do it. That's what happened. It's a hurricane away from re-flooding the whole New Orleans.
Yep.
And I understand you don't want to leave your home, but maybe you should sell your land there and maybe buy on the other side of that dang city. And, you know, the sad part is we're going to lose a lot of history underwater.
Yep. I mean, scientists have all agreed. We don't, even if we act now, if we completely change everything in the U.S., we still have to convince China to change. We still have to convince Russia, India.
It's going to take, yes. Well, that doesn't mean we shouldn't. If we start doing it...
No, we absolutely should.
We'll see,
but even if we do it, we're still fucked.
But you actually look at how powerful we are. We are one of the biggest countries by populated landmass. Meaning, what I mean is there's no giant spot that is not populated. Russia is pretty big, but most of it's uninhabitable unless you're a Yeti.
Yeah.
India is all compact.
What do you mean? Don't Russians go outside in their boxers and just walk through the blizzard? Pretty sure they do that.
Yes.
Some of them. They're crazy. I don't know.
With enough vodka, you stay warm.
I don't have enough mass on me to do that. I'm skin and bone. I'm gonna walk outside and just turn into a popsicle. Yeah. I've a lot of climate change, but yeah, even if the entire world fixes all of our problems right now, still water level is still gonna rise, temperature is gonna rise, lots gonna get very bad.
Now, there's one thing I want to point out. Scientists say all the ice will not melt.
No.
But the amount it's going to melt is drastic. A few inches does not seem like that much. Like I said, a few inches could mean hundreds of feet inland on a natural day.
Yep.
Warmer seas will cause fiercer storms.
Bacteria and coral reefs are already dying in a lot of places. You know, there's shit. The temperature is very important. You know, it's like people like to think it's like, oh, the global temperature, if it changes by a few degrees, the global temperature changes by a few degrees. That doesn't mean, you know, you're going to go from having, you know, 90-degree summer days to 95-degree summer days. It could be 90-degree summer days to 110-degree summer days.
Yes.
You know, it's like the global temperature is drastically different than local temperature.
Okay, if you don't believe us, look at your winter. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're like in Nebraska and Kansas. How much snow did you have? Now think about 20 years ago.
We essentially don't have a winter this year. Like
it's
we do.
40 degrees right now.
It's a bit cold. I'm walking out in this tiny little sweater. And last year, I had to have my... Yeah, I had to have my freaking windbreaker on almost every day. I couldn't go outside without my windbreaker. The snow, the cold, the sheer, just like I had to have an extra layer.
Well, there was not that much snow last year. I even started wearing my long johns or pajama pants under my pants last year because I was too cold going outside. Besides, like I would put those on just so that I could go outside. Yeah.
I haven't had to do any of that this year.
It's 40 degrees
40
right
degrees
now.
outside.
46, 48. Last time I checked, like a couple hours ago, and it's probably still warming up. Yeah. I want to go on a motorcycle ride. It's nice out.
I was thinking about going on a ride too. I put my bike in the barn, and the ground got a little wet, and then now I can't. You know, it's gonna be harder to get it back out. But it's like
we need to fix your. We need to toss some rocks down for you.
I didn't even necessarily need to do that. I mean, it snowed once since then.
Yeah. My bikes are outside all the time, but I don't have a good spot to put it.
Yeah.
I cry every time I see it rain.
If I had a cover, I would have thrown a cover on it, but I didn't have a cover. So
yeah. Now, there's another thing I want to point out. The world is at this tipping point, and it's very exciting. And I think we're going to make it through it, even through Trump, global warming, and other things. But you look at everything changing. Like United Methodist Church right now is, last few years, it's been on the verge of splitting. Because one side says, no, we don't want gays. The other side says, yeah, God loves everyone. The other side, it's against the Bible. That's one of the tipping points.
Yeah.
And then we got Trump causing a tipping point, environment, and technology.
I think the main problem, you know, it's like I like to be optimistic. I'm usually, it's like I think we'll. I operate under the thought process that everything will be fine. You know, it's like, and you know, we'll all be fine. Most of us, not all of us. You know, there are people in the country, or people around the world, and people in the country suffering. But it's like, generally, it's getting better. Things are getting better. People are being more progressive. People are being more accepting. People are being more decent, respectful. On average, the majority of people are supportive of other human beings and are, you know, it's like we have the Republican Party, and it's we have a very right leaning Republican Party and conservatives and whatnot, but they're actually very much the minority. They are not. The reason Trump has a 40% approval rating right now is not because he actually has a 40%. And I think if you polled
40% from the sites that
40%
runs and pays.
40% of anybody that takes part in polls. But there are how many millions of people that don't take part in polls, don't vote, they don't voice their opinions in any way. So it's like the people not speaking, if you actually talk to the people who genuinely don't vote or don't poll, it's like they're usually more left-leaning. They're usually genuinely, they're usually decent. They just don't think their opinion matters, so they just don't vote.
Well, that's the problem, is vote. I mean, it doesn't take too long, and it will change the world.
Yeah. I think most people are decent people. If you talk, most people you talk to in person will be decent people.
Well, that's because of evolution.
You know?
The people that survive are the ones that get camaraderie, teamwork. They care about someone else's success because that means it's their success.
We are social creatures. People have a hard time surviving alone. It's like I always say, I think I could survive alone. I think I could do it. But, it's like we're social creatures. It's advantageous to us to help each other.
Well, there's actually...
It's a benefits everyone when we help each other.
Exactly. And that's what's going to prevail is each country is going to start helping each other more. It is going.
Yep.
But here's a weird psychology thing is if you don't get enough social stuff, you actually begin to think that this person doesn't like you. And they might be saying something proper and you're like taking it, oh no, they're saying it like this. They're mean. It's weird how our brain works. And it helps you become more antisocial and you usually get more depressed.
I can't tell you how many times I even seeing social people just misinterpret what people are saying. Like somebody says something, they say it very clearly, their opinion makes perfect sense. And majority of people, when they speak, what they say makes sense. If you're listening properly, what they say makes sense. But everybody has their own way of speaking, so it might come out wrong. It might come out to some people.
Are you talking about me on this one?
No. This is like everyone I've ever known. At some point, I have watched people misunderstand what they say, and even though I'm sitting there thinking like, what they just said made perfect sense. Even people I don't know, somebody I don't know will make a statement, and I will see 4 to 5 people. I will see a group of people get outraged at that statement, and I have to step in and be like, whoa, you clearly misunderstood what he said.
Well, some people don't care.
You clearly misunderstood. It's like I can't tell you how many times I've stepped in to say, no, this person that you didn't listen properly. You need to stop getting outraged and just wait. Actually think about what was said, because people just misinterpret.
Well, and some people
like to
they
get
don't
outraged.
care to listen. They only care about their point.
Yep.
They don't care to follow the facts, or they already know what they want. And so if someone says something totally different, even if the proof's in front of them, they don't care. They get outraged, or they find a way to blow up because they have their own problems. And their problem is these people are more vocal than the majority of the other people.
Yep. That's the effect, that I forget what it's called, but it's, if you try to, somebody has a belief and they act like they actively support that belief, they're wholeheartedly in that belief. If you show them any evidence to the contrary, like you actively go up to them and show them, hey, you're wrong, this is actually the facts, a lot of the times it'll just further ingrain their beliefs.
Well, there's a special way to talk to people like that.
They're like, oh no, that's it's like they will dig and grasp for any way.
Well, that's most religions out there too. Well, look at, like I said, the United Methodist Church. Mm-hmm. They're splitting. They're splitting because they can't agree on something. Yeah. Let's just say I spent a lot of time with the United Methodist Church deep in there, and
I think majority of the people are good people, or at the very least they're good at hiding it. It's like majority of the people are good people, so just be good people.
Majority of people are good people,
and you have to. I don't want anyone to think their opinion doesn't matter. Everyone's opinions matter. I don't care how wrong your opinion is. I want to hear it. I want
how wrong your opinion is.
It's like I don't care if you're wrong or right. There are a lot of people that have good opinions. Some people have terrible opinions. Like racists, they have terrible opinions. But
damn crackers!
It's like if people don't if everybody would just speak their opinion in a calm, collected manner and listen to other people's opinions, and then have a calm, collected debate, or try to persuade. I think you'd be surprised at how many minds you can change.
Well, the problem is you got to listen first.
You got to listen first.
And once someone starts yelling, you might as well stop the conversation. They're done listening.
Yep. They're
not going to listen, no matter how right you are. It's just going to make you mad, angry, maybe pop a couple blood vessels. You just sit back, let them yell, watch their blood vessels pop. And once they're on the floor because their blood vessels popped, you'd be like, this is my point here.
Yeah. I've had some situations where it's like the other person was yelling or the other person wasn't, it's like, so it's like, there was one situation in particular, somebody, it's like they clearly fucked up, so I went in with a slightly raised voice. I wasn't yelling, but I had my voice raised to very clearly state, you are in the wrong. It's like I don't often do that. Just go out and just, like, when I was younger, I used to not be able to recognize that was the wrong way to go about it. But, it's like eventually I recognize most of the time that's the wrong way to go about it. Actively jumping in and be like, well, you're just completely wrong is usually incorrect.
That causes
Sometimes there are certain situations where that's the only thing somebody will hear. And so you go in with, that is absolutely 100% mistaken. And then they'll be like, well, it's like everything I said. They'll try to defend it a bit. And then from there, you'd be like, and then you lower your voice again. And you say, well, here's why. It's like, well, let's look it up. Well, then why don't we look it up together? Here, I'll pull out my phone. You pull out your phone. We'll start Googling. It's like you find whatever evidence you want. I'll find what it is. And then, ta-da! You both will likely come across the same evidence. Even if you both have your biased opinions and you look it up. A lot of people like to believe that when you look up a biased opinion on Google, you're going to get something to support your opinion. That's not necessarily always the case. A lot of times when you look up, Google will just look for anything that's relevant. So even if you type in something biased, there will be people debating that bias. So you will always find similar data if you look enough. You can't click on the first link and be like, well, this article says this, and then go with it. Click on the first 10 links. Click on 15 links. Yeah. Change the question. Click on more links.
Well, shoot, I mean, I like to argue and I like to talk. If I am dead set on my point and I don't use some of those key words like, I believe this or this, where I have backpedaling, I probably know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And I will say, okay, you go look it up. And there's some people I argue with and they're start an argument. I'm like, okay, go look this up. I tell them, look this up, and then come back because I don't really want to debate you because you haven't done your research. Yeah.
But a lot of times, like if I'm arguing with something, I don't even ask them to look it up. I will just pull out my phone and start looking it up. Like I'll just do that. I did that multiple times with family members. It's like we're sitting there having a debate, and I'm just like, okay, and they say something, and I'm like, well, I've never heard of that before, so I immediately pull out my phone. And I look up, like, for example, the immigration thing. I immediately looked that up, how many illegal immigrants were voting in the 2016 election. And I got, multiple different articles. And I clicked on at least 10 links. At least. And it's like that I saw both sides of the argument. And I could clearly see that the studies that actually supported the evidence were supporting that there were not millions of illegal voters. So it was very easy to do. I didn't have to ask him to look it up. I mean, well, he was also driving at the time, so so it's like I immediately pull out my phone, look it up, and then I just read through the links. I read through as I'm going through it.
So the guy I went on the motorcycle trip with last year to South Dakota, I enjoyed the trip, but he had some weird religious views, and he figured out I'm an atheist. And he wanted to talk to me. And so basically I showed him all these facts and stuff. He actively chose to ignore these facts. Yep. And then he showed me how he has manipulated his views against science to try to explain why the Bible's right. Yep. Like, he brought up, well, if it's so young and stuff, and the environment was like this, there's an old theory out there. I forgot, I probably can look it up, but the theory was, at one time, the Earth was circled in ice made out of nitrogen to keep temperatures a certain way. But it didn't work. There's no way for that to work. And if it did work, the inside temperatures would be so cold because light wouldn't go through it. Yeah. But no matter how much argument I went with him or showing him these things, he did not understand because he didn't want to look at a different perspective. He wanted his perspective to be 100% right.
You know what I enjoy? I enjoy flat earthers.
They
are so much comedic relief.
Well, we'll watch our listeners go down because everyone's flat earther.
Oh man, is it just funny to watch?
But they do the same acrobats.
But it's like that one Netflix documentary where the guy bought the most expensive gyroscope on the planet. It's $20,000 gyroscope, I believe.
Yeah, I forgot what it was designed for. And
they're just like, it's like, so these people are actively denying science is what they're doing. But then in order to prove their theory, they have to do science. And it's like their entire argument is like, oh yeah, the scientists will tell you, oh, they're just all about math. But look, we're out here, we're doing experiments. We are learning the truth. It's like, yeah, you're literally doing science, except you're doing your data collection wrong, but you're doing science.
Well, it's hard to do science with what you want to get. So how do you make it look like you got it?
They're starting with the outcome they want and trying to go from there, which, they still, even starting with the outcome they wanted, they didn't get that outcome because they're wrong. So obviously the fact that they didn't get the outcome should clue them in that they're wrong, but they just choose to believe it anyway. But it's hilarious. I love it.
Looking at a flat earther video, and he was trying to disprove flat earth and gravity by jumping.
Yeah.
And another thing, when you look at some of these people using science, they don't understand what a theory is and a hypothesis. Mm-hmm. Hypothesis means we don't really know, but it looks like this. I have a hypothesis that the Earth's flat, so I go test it. Well, if it doesn't come back true, you got to change what happened to understand what happened.
You have to. You have a thought. You start with an idea, then you test that idea. You collect the data, not some of the data. You don't cherry pick data. You collect all the data, and if all of the data supports your thought, then you can say, hey, my thought was right. This is the case. You learn, you come to a conclusion. Or, more than likely, it's like, hey, I was off a little bit. I was slightly off, or this was completely wrong, or just whatever, it's like, and then you revisit your thought, change the thought, your thought process changes, and you observe again.
And this is what's called peer review. Mm-hmm. After you get done with a scientific paper, you have other scientists or other people that do that, and they review it. Like my wife, she was doing a college paper over bacteria and finding it on different surfaces, and I forgot. I said, well, you should have done it like this, because it may have skewed your data, because not everything's the same. Like from using a different toilet seat from a different stall might have different bacteria on it, so you might not get the same.
But also, having a control group, having a test group, having randomized data or randomized data set, whatever information you're gathering, you have to try and keep it in an environment that the only thing that changes is the variable you want to measure. And sometimes that's not possible. But, it's very easy to test, get data, look at all the data, then form a conclusion.
But also don't forget peer review. The best part about science is you can be wrong about science.
Publish exactly what you did. Tell people exactly the steps you took, the data, all the aspects of your data, your control group, your whatnot, and you publish that, and you get that out there to other people. Other people can do the exact same thing. They can replicate your test, or if they think your test is flawed, they can alter your test and come to the either the same or different conclusions.
If you're the only one that can do that test or that experiment, and get that result, there's something wrong.
If you're the only one getting that result, there's that's not always wrong, but it's like it's a good chance.
Yeah. There's one more thing I want to point out is, like I said, hypothesis is pretty much your first step. It's a guess. A theory has many different facts put into it. Theory is usually 100% strong. There might be some things that can be added. Like gravity is called a theory.
Yeah, the theory.
It's got a whole bunch of different facts in it. But there's some things you don't understand because the gravity actually can change with certain physics characteristics we have trouble studying since we don't know everything that's called a theory. But there's facts. I mean, drop an apple, it falls to the ground. That's gravity.
Yeah, I mean, you could just look at the stars. You don't even have to look at Earth. Look at the stars. Just all of the other planets, how gravity affects them, how they're
Well, that's why
evolving.
there's a lot of stuff we don't know.
But then,
stars.
so it's like, okay, then how come all the other planets are around? Oh, well, Earth isn't a planet. Hello? Are you an idiot? You're probably just an idiot.
No, actually, there's actually a psychology thing about why people believe in theories that go, or hypotheses that go against the norm. It's, I know something you don't, so I feel good because I know something you don't. You're being tricked. So I'm going to believe that Spider-Man is going to crawl across my ceiling because he's real. Sorry, kids.
Hey, Spider-Man is real. How dare you? Man, we've been going for an hour. That's a long podcast, Josh. You think we should end it?
I think we should wrap it up.
I think that's a good place. Oh, well, I guess this is the two Morons signing off. I'm Dalton.
I'm Josh. We'll talk to you guys later.
Have a wonderful day.